Morning, all. All right, so we're going to start off today talking about the draft. And I'm going to look at the top 16. Top 16 according to Elite Prospects, Hockey Prospect, McKeen's Hockey, Sportsnet, and the Hockey News. So I have the lists for, or I have the books for Hockey Prospect and McKeen's both downloaded. So I'll be able to do some in-depth looks at guys I haven't already looked at in this year's draft class. I've already done videos on, I think it's 10 different players so far in this year's draft class. But yeah, so it's going to be an interesting one. Now, the top three looks pretty set. The top three looks pretty set. In that Connor Bedard is going first. Every list has Connor Bedard first. Bedard is just, he's going to be the guy. Now, one list that's not up here is Bob McKenzie's. The most recent Bob McKenzie list is a little bit older. The final Bob McKenzie list is due in 5 days, but I figured, I've got enough lists here. We're good. But yeah, Connor Bedard's number one. He's going to be number one on McKenzie's final list as well because he's going first overall to Chicago. And whatever people may feel about it, he's going to Chicago. He will sign with the Hawks, and we'll see what happens with Bedard. But he is the best player in this draft class. Now, at number two, this is where there's a bit of a debate. Now, Leo Carlsson, according to Hockey Prospect, should be number two, at least number two ranked prospect. And I'm going to say right now, these are prospect rankings, not a mock draft. Mock drafts are quite different. I didn't want to get into a mock draft. I wanted to get into just the rankings. So Adam Fantilli is number two on every other list. Elite Prospects, McKeen's, Sportsnet, and the Hockey News. Fantilli's the center. He, odds are, is not going to be in the NHL for probably at least that first year after the draft, but could very well be talked into turning pro after that first year. The thing is, Leo Carlsson is projected to be almost as or maybe better than Fantilli. Carlsson listed as a center or winger, depending on which list you're looking at. And he's number three on every list except Hockey Prospect, which has Fantilli at third. So this should be the top three. I'd be very, very surprised if the top three was not Bedard, Fantilli, and then Carlsson, right? So that'd be Chicago, Anaheim, and Columbus, all picking up a player who could be a top line center for them. All three teams could use that, right? So it's going to be great for those three teams. And then the intrigue really picks up. This year's UFA class is not seen as being quite as sexy as some of the former UFA classes. It's seen more as there's some mediocrity to it, right? But this year's draft is considered to be excellent. So we may see a lot of trade around the draft. We may see it during the draft as well. And at 4, we may see some draft picks getting moved. We could. So the San Jose Sharks have the number 4 pick, and 3 of 5 lists have Matvei Michkov as the number 4 pick. Elite Prospects, Hockey Prospect, and Hockey News. But Will Smith's number 4 on McKeen's and Sportsnet. Now, Will Smith is number 5 on the Hockey News list. Will Smith is number 8 on the Hockey Prospects list. And so where does Smith end up going? We shall find out. But yeah, he's likely to end up going in that top 8. I'd be very surprised if he's not in the top 8. He's number 7 on Elite Prospects, meaning they want Will Smith with Philadelphia. West Philadelphia, born and raised. And then at some point in time, he has to get traded to LA because Will Smith. All right, that being said, all kidding aside, we'll see if Matvei Michkov goes at 4. Because there's a lot of talk about, his contract with the KHL, and legitimately so. He has 3 years in the KHL. And then there's so what's the whole global everything going to look like in 3 years? We don't know. So there's that little bit of uncertainty there, and it may cause Michkov to drop. Now, according to Sportsnet, Michkov's number 5. Will Smith's number 5 on Hockey News' list. Zach Benson, number 5 on Elite Prospects. There are very differing opinions of where Benson should go. I lean more towards the bullish side with Benson. I really think there's a lot there, but we'll find out. Dmitry Simashev, defenseman, is number 5 according to Hockey Prospect. And Ryan Leonard, according to McKeen's, is number 5. He's a center. So there are a lot of options there, including maybe trading down. So if you are of the belief that Montreal should draft a defenseman, they may very well be able to trade down, get some other prospect or piece with that, and still get the defenseman they're looking for. Then we get to number 6. And again, there's no real consensus with this. Ryan Leonard's number 6 on 2 lists, Sportsnet and Elite Prospects. Colby Barlow, the highest he gets is 6th according to Hockey Prospects. He's a left winger. Hockey Prospect always has one or two prospects that are completely out of place with other lists. Watch them because in Moritz Seider's draft year, they were much higher on Moritz Seider than anybody else. They absolutely called it. I emailed back and forth with them. They're like, yeah, no, Seider's going to be great. This kid's got a lot of potential. And so we'll see if Barlow ends up being another one of those guys. Matvey Michkov's number 6 on McKean's. Ryan Leonard, of course, for Sportsnet and Elite Prospects. And Dalibor Dvorsky makes his first appearance here. Hockey News prospect, center, right winger. Believe Czechborn, who's been playing out of Sweden as well. So he's already been around, and we'll see where he ends up being drafted. There's, again, no real consensus with him. Number 7, Will Smith, as I said, goes here from Elite Prospects. Daniil Boot makes his first appearance on the list. Hockey Prospect has him here at 7th. He's a left winger. David Reinbacher's first appearance is at 7th. He's a defenseman. McKean's has him here. Zach Benson's here according to Sportsnet, and Ryan Leonard is here according to Hockey News. So a lot of the U.S. National Development Team program members just not interchangeable, but different. They're ranked differently by everybody. It is one of those things because they all play together. So which one's the actual best player? There's definitely debate there. Number 8. So the Washington Capitals drafting here. This is where some people think Michkov ends up landing. We shall see. Oliver Moore is number 8 on 2 different lists for Elite Prospects and McKean's. Will Smith's number 8 according to Hockey Prospect. David Reinbacher's 8th on Hockey News' list. And Zach Benson is number 8 on the Hockey News list. So again, Benson, 8th, 7th, 5th. I think he ends up in that spot. However, one list has him at 16th. We shall see. So that's your first half. We get into the second half now. David Reinbacher, again, defenseman, number 9. If Detroit's drafting there, do they take Reinbacher? And once you get to 9, you should be drafting best player available. Drafting by position drives me crazy because when you're drafting later in the draft, these are players who are probably going to be a minimum of 2 years away from joining your team. 2 years from now, you don't necessarily know what your strengths and weaknesses are going to be. Draft the best player available. Gabe Perreault, right winger, is number 9 on the Hockey Prospect list. And again, does not show up in the top 16 for anybody else's list. But Perreault's numbers are really good. And I mentioned in one of my draft prospect videos, Perreault's numbers, I'm kind of surprised he's not higher on the list. But he moved up quite a bit on Hockey Prospects. And final draft lists, it sounds like, are moving him up pretty much universally. Dalibor Dvorsky ends up here on McKean's list. Colby Barlow, so there he is again. Sportsnet has him at 9. David Reinbacher, 9 on this list as well for the Hockey News. That's 2 with Reinbacher at 9th. Number 10, Dmitry Simashev, according to St. Louis, or going to St. Louis according to, let me do this right, Elite Prospects. And when I say going to, meaning these are not mock drafts, these are the draft rankings. I need to make sure that that's clear because a mock draft is quite different, where you'd look at it and go, well, this is the best player available, but I think they're going to draft this guy. And I like to cut through that and just say, what do the rankings tell you? So Dalibor Dvorsky ends up at 10 according to Hockey Prospect. Axel Sandin Palika makes his first appearance here by McKean's. Might be Pelika, but I'll go with Palika. I apologize if that's being mispronounced. But he is a player that I think if he's available when the Canucks are drafting, I'd like to see them take a look at because they could really use another defenseman. Samuel Honzik going number 10 on Sportsnet's list. And Braden Yeager, the only time he appears on this list is at 10th for the Hockey News. So again, we're going to hear names in this draft that we say, wait a minute, he's going there? We didn't think he'd go that soon. Or we will, I will call this now, there will definitely be at least one player who by the time we get down to 16th, we're going to say, this guy still hasn't gone. When is he going to get picked? So number 11, of course, this is Vancouver's spot. And if some of these guys were still available, I'd be quite, excited about it. But at any rate, Dalibor Dvorsky's number 11 on Elite Prospects, center, right winger. Ryan Leonard, Hockey Prospect. I really would hope that if Vancouver has a shot at Ryan Leonard, they take that draft pick. And I understand they're looking at defensemen. And I get it. And there's been the debate locally about do you take best player available or by position. I've already stated my position on that, which is best player available. But if they don't take Ryan Leonard, if he's available there, I'd be very upset because Leonard really is supposed to go before that. Nate Danielson's number 11 on the McKean's list. Dalibor Dvorsky's number 11 on Sportsnet's as well. And Oliver Moore is number 11 on Hockey News. So again, either Moore or Leonard, I'd be happy there, but we'll see. Number 12, Quentin Musty is number 12 on Arizona's list. Elite Prospects has him there, left winger. Zach Benson's number 12 on Hockey Prospects list. Matthew Wood makes his first appearance here. He's number 12 on McKeen's list, and Axel Sandin Palika shows up here at 12th on Sportsnet's list. Defenseman Andrew Cristal. So Cristal, a player who I feel like's kind of dropped. So there's some players who've gone up, but Cristal only shows up at 12th on the Arizona list, left winger, or number 12 on the Hockey News list would put him with Arizona. And I seem to remember him being higher on lists a couple of months ago, and now it feels like he's dropped off. But we'll see, right? We'll see. Number 13, so this is where Buffalo would be picking, Grayson Sachin. Elite Prospects has him here. He's a center. David Reinbacher ends up landing here from Hockey Prospect. Dmitry Simashev ends up here according to McKeen's. And if Buffalo drafted either Reinbacher or Simashev, that might end up being a really good spot for them. Oliver Moore is number 13 on Sportsnet's list. Colby Barlow, number 13 on the Hockey News list. So, again, it is really all over the place. And then you get to 14. This is Pittsburgh. So this is where we're going to start to see what kind of a stamp Kyle Dubas might put on this team as the interim GM, at least into July, right? So Callum Ritchie is number 14 on the Elite Prospects list. He's a center. Matthew Wood ends up here according to Hockey Prospect. Daniel Boot shows up here, or Daniil Boot shows up here on McKeen's list. Matthew Wood is also here on Sportsnet's list. And then you have Axel Sandin Palika ending up 14 on the Hockey News list, which brings us right down to 15, where Nashville drafts, and Sandin Palika being number 15 on the Elite Prospects list. So that's as low as he gets, is 15. He could go anywhere in that region, and it really does depend on teams' draft lists, which are going to be quite different. Can I see your draft list? No. Samuel Honzik, number 15, a Hockey Prospect. Tom Willander ends up here. I'm honestly kind of surprised Willander doesn't end up higher up on some other lists, but McKeen's has him at 15, and I say that because between Sandin Palika and Willander, they're seen as like the next two after Reinbacher and Simashev, but there's comparisons of the four defensemen, and they're seen as being, the cream of the crop of the defensemen in this draft class. So Willander could be a steal for Nashville if they get him there. Nate Danielson's 15 on the Sportsnet list, and Edward Sale, or Saleh, ends up 15 on the Hockey News list, and so we'll see how he ends up being drafted. And again, it could be one or the other. I'm thinking it's probably Saleh. Usually is, but I've seen Sale as well. Number 16, Calgary, drafting here. Matthew Wood. Elite Prospects has Matthew Wood going here. He's also number 16 on the Hockey News list. So he's 14 on two lists, he's 16 on two lists, and he's 12 on another. So definitely in that 12 to 16 range according to the lists. Oliver Bonk. Yes, please. Defenseman, I would be perfectly fine with anybody named Bonk playing on a team I cheer for. Always one of my favorite names ever in NHL history. I'm so excited we could have another Bonk in the National Hockey League. And I look forward to all the times I say Radek when I'm talking about him. I think that'll be great. But it's Oliver, so we'll see if I call him Radek and how many times that happens. Zach Benson's number 16 on the McKeen's list. I can't really see Benson being available at 16. I can't see him still being out there. And then Otto Stenberg is number 16 on the Sportsnet list. It's the only time he shows up on the list. And of course, as I said, Wood ends up 16th on the Hockey News list. So who's in the top 16? There seems to be some consensus of what the top 16 prospect list should look like. But in what order is where the arguments start to show up. And again, the top three seem pretty set. And then at 4, we get into the real entry. Does San Jose go up and say, you know what? We are in a rebuild here, but Michkov is so talented. He's so good. We're going to take him at 4, and we're not going to worry about the rest. Does Columbus go up there and say, we think Matt Michkov is the most talented, and therefore we're going to take him ahead of Carlson or Fantilli? We'll find out. But it is going to be a fascinating draft. I'm really looking forward to covering that. There will, of course, be live streams on the channel both on day 1 and on day 2. Day 2 can be a little bit more of a trial because one of two things. There was the one year that the draft took forever, and we just gave up. It was taking forever. And when you're into the 3rd round and it's still taking like 5 minutes a draft pick, are you kidding me? And then usually, because they just do it from the desk and they don't go up and announce it or anything. They don't have guys shaking hands and putting on jerseys. It's just being announced from the podium by, Bill Daly or whoever. It usually goes really, really fast. And so it was really hard for me to keep up with the chats and everything. So I don't really bother with tracking rounds 2 through 7 anymore. But yeah, we're going to have live streams both days. A lot to discuss. So hoping to see you there then. And let me know in the comment section below, which order do you think guys should get drafted in? Because all of the scouting for all year, and there is no consensus. And I think that's great. I think the unpredictability is always welcome. And so let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.